its own right. And to all of you, my dear friends, members of the press, Lucknow heritage lovers, my admirers, my detractors, I hope not. And it's a real pleasure to see all of you. And I'm just thinking that my last book was released in 2015, I think 6 years ago. Time flies. And many of you were in that occasion also. And it's so nice of you that during this COVID period, you have made this effort and joined me in the release of my humble book. So you see, I have no papers, I have no prepared speech. I'll speak whatever comes to my mind. I'll speak about my love for Lucknow. I'll speak about whatever is in the book. And I hope that you enjoy my ramblings. And if you enjoy, then of course you can sit back and have a good time. And if you get bored, then you can just raise your hands and say, sir, it's enough. Please wind up. So I'll listen to you. So my dear friends, why this book? People often ask me, why do you write about Lucknow? Because you are not a historian, you are a scientist, and just to tell you that I am a PhD in chemistry. And I've been working in ICR for the past many years. So why all this history? So to that I reply that it's not a book on history. It's not a history book. For history, I leave it to the historians. You have the history departments of universities, you have the libraries and the sources and the students and the funding and then what you say, the qualifications and the training for historical research. But this is not history, this is a book on heritage. And the points that I've raised or tried to raise, you won't find in a history book. No professor will write all that, because these form part of a tangible heritage which Lucknow has. And due to my affection for this city, I keep on reading and I keep on researching, and I come across a lot of material, and then my library, my personal library in my house, it becomes bigger and bigger. And then I feel that why not share all this information, because after all what you find in the internet and the digital world is very limited. A lot of information, a lot of literature lies buried, lies lost among archives, and many are in the public domain now. So after reading so much, I feel like sharing with you as a sort of distillate that, okay, this is what I've learned, and now let me present it to you so that you do not have to read 100 books to read what I am giving you in this small compilation. And another thing which I have always done is that I have, when describing Lucknow or when analyzing Lucknow, I have always stayed clear of the very famous and very well-known places of Lucknow. Everybody knows Lucknow means Bada Imambara, Lumi Darwaza, maybe Residency. I have stayed clear. I talk about things which are not very well-known, or which are lost, or which are neglected. So I try to bring forth aspects of the city, particularly the architectural aspects, which people are not very well aware of. Now I'll give an example. In my last book, I had described some buildings and all. One of the buildings I had described was Darshan Vilas and Gulistan Iram, which is right opposite the High Court. So a gentleman, a friend of mine, he was asking me that, where is this Gulistan Iram, Darshan Vilas? And he's in the High Court. And why? He can't be blamed, because it was in ruins, it was surrounded by trees and shrubs and banyan trees. So one cannot be blamed if he doesn't know that a beautiful structure is lying hidden behind those shadows. Can't be blamed. And if I write, then some sort of awareness is there. So I'm happy to say that in the intervening years, some work has been done on the restoration and repairing of these buildings, which are almost forgotten, almost behind the, not even in the view or in the knowledge of the general public. Anyway, that was about my old book. Now here in this present book, I have also dealt with issues which again are not well known, not well described, not well discussed, and Lucknow is not very well known because of these. Now I will give certain examples. I don't know how much time I have. My book is actually divided into certain sections. So one of the sections is the lost marbles, which I call it. These were the marbles of Lucknow and now they are lost. Machi Bhavan, and lot of misinformation is floating around simply because the name, we are not even sure who gave this name Machi Bhavan, why it is called Machi Bhavan, what was inside, what was outside, who built it, who stayed there, who destroyed it, when it was destroyed, when it was repaired. So many details are there. And many of you will not have the time or patience to read 100 books to know what Machi Bhavan was all about. So therein lies my effort, that I read and I read and I read and I draw certain references and then I present to you in the form of a chapter. Another Nawabi property which I have described in this book is in Shahjahanabad, which is in Old Delhi. Now, some of you may think that what is this about? In Delhi is talking about Delhi. But yes, the initial Nawabs of Awadh, Burhanul Mulk and Safdarjung and Shuja Abdullah, they had a definite presence in Delhi also, and they had their residence. So where did they stay? What was the lifestyle? What was the palace like? What happened to the palace? How it was divided? How it was used? Who stayed there? Who destroyed it? What did the British do? Where is it now? Which condition is it in now? All these things I tried to describe. A Nawabi property of Awadh still existing in Old Delhi. Many of you know about a fort called Bijli Pasi Kila in Ashiana. So there is a haunted type of structure, especially if you see in the night, and some pillars are there, nothing wrong. But that was a huge area, and I've tried to discern the details of what was it all about. So is it really Bijli Pasi Kila, or was it called originally Jalalabad Fort? Who built it again, then what happened, how it was destroyed? Many of these properties were destroyed by the British. So I've tried to glean some details, and I've shared all those details with you in the book. Because Bijli Pasi, we all know that around 1,000 years ago, this Indo-Gangetic plain was inhabited by tribes and clans. And the Pasis were one such clan, and they were in and around this desert area which we call Lucknow. And they had many mud forts. And it's quite possible that one of these mud forts were taken over by the Nawabs and rebuilt or reconstructed or strengthened and fortified. And then it came to be known as Jalalabad Fort. So today to call it Bijli Pasi Kila may be correct, may not be correct. I am not going to controversies. But yes, a mud fort to last for 1,000 years is little doubtful. So it's quite probable that it was the site for a mud fort. It was the fort of a chieftain called Bijli Pasi, but ultimately it was modified by Safdarjung, and then again it was in ruins, and then it was used by the British during 1857, and on and on and on, and the area was then developed by the village leaders and whatever happened, and we're not going into details. And now what you see in Ashiana is the remnant of a fort which has a rich history. So all these details you will find in my book. These cover what I have written about the lost marvels, because ultimately nobody talks about all this. Lucknow means kebabs and chicken and Umi Darbar. Who is bothered about the fort lying in a colony called Ashiana? Now coming to the architecture of Lucknow, I think my friend Vipul will be most interested to read the 2 chapters which I have written. So we see that Lucknow had a range of fantastic structures built by Nawabs, and this architecture of Lucknow became very famous. And it was also revived by the British. There were many travelers who came to India during Nawabi rule, and they used to write their memoirs and their travel logs. And almost all would be critical of the home style or home evolved Nawabi architecture, what we call. Now, to be very honest, these travelers from Europe, they were French and they were British. They were all very critical of Claude Martin's Constantia also. They were really abusive of that structure, calling it, n number of names. But let's not go into it. What structures they did like unanimously was the Bada Imam Bada. I have not come across a single account of any criticism of the Bada Imam Bada. Turkish gate or Rumi Darwaza, what we know as, they were not very many comments, not good, not bad. Possibly because Europe has very many gates. If many of you might have gone to Europe and especially Eastern Europe, then very many gateway cities are there, so might not be very attractive or significant for a European traveler. But what I did find appreciable were the tombs of Saadat Ali Khan and Khurshid Zadi. There is not a single iota of criticism against these two tombs, although they are not very large, but still they were appreciated. What angered them most was these palaces of the Nawabs, and they said it is a hybrid structure and it is a mess and they are not following the Grecian elements of architecture, and they are making a hodgepodge, and Nawabi court is debased and their architecture is debased. So a lot of criticism is there. So what we call basically a torrent of criticism. Now see the hypocrisy. That according to European travelers, and later also, even after 1857, the colonial rulers, these things were unacceptable. That any sort of dilution should occur in the Grecian, the classical orders of architecture, and it has to be either pure or not at all. They cannot accept any hybrid structure of having Islamic overtones and European overtones and some imaginative images and statues, and especially in Islamic city, they were amazed to see statues of animals and ladies and mermaids and whatnot and fairies, and they were like, what is happening? And then the criticism spilled out in the writings. After 1850, now what you're talking about is basically colonialism. This was the area when the British came as basically for trade, and then they started gobbling up the country and making it into a colony of Britain. So it was a phase of colonialism. And then what happened after 1857 when the Crown took over the subcontinent? I'm telling of subcontinent because I'm encompassing Pakistan also. So when they took over the subcontinent, Indian subcontinent, it became part of the Crown. Now here that it is not colonialism anymore, it is imperialism. So what is the difference? Basically it is the same, because the master is the same, the slave is the same. But the nomenclature is different, and now suddenly there was this wish that we should accept native architecture, we should create something new which will be looked upon by the locals as something wonderful, and then this concept of Indo-Saracenic architecture came about. So you will see very many structures in Lucknow supporting this Indo-Saracenic architecture, having the Islamic elements and having the European elements and having Buddhist elements and Rajasthani elements, and a great mishmash of chajas and chabutras and this and that. So the very concept of hybrid architecture, which was criticized and abused by the British pre-1857, was now acceptable, and a form of architecture which they called as Indo-Saracenic architecture. Now why this term Indo-Saracenic? Those of you who will read the book, you will find I have tried to analyze why this term and what is the big erroneous and misnomer it is, but then it went on and on and on, and you find very many structures which we call today as very attractive or very fantastic. But if you go into details, you may not be so impressed. I'll give just one example. The Parikhana was demolished and the Canning College was built in its place. And the Canning College is half Rajasthani, a little bit of European overtone, a little bit of Nawabi, and it's a great mess to my eyes. Maybe you and maybe most of us will say that the present Bhatkhande building is attractive, it's a heritage of Lucknow, etc. Fine, no issues. But I have given details of how this Rajasthani elements were introduced, and to my mind Rajasthani elements do not match at all with Nawabi architecture. But then we had the British rulers and they did whatever they felt like. And the very thing that they were against before 1857, they created and they propagated with a lot of zeal. So these issues I have discussed in my book with a lot of detail. I think that I have put in so much detail, some of you might be bored that what is guys talking about. But then of course some serious discussion is sometimes necessary. Another aspect of Lucknow I have discussed here is the concept of a garden city and the concept of a gateway city. Because Lucknow was known as the city of gateways and it was also known as the city of gardens, as most of you know. That Many of these gardens were Nawabi gardens having their own design vocabulary and not matching with the Mughal gardens, that was different from that. And these gardens had structures inside, but they were, a lot of them were demolished during 1857, and then they were reappropriated into different uses. After 1857, some garden like Aishbagh became a water station, some garden like Charbagh became a railway station, and so on and so forth. So what actually existed within these gardens, not much is known. So I have gathered details and I've read and read and read, and I have tried to describe some of these gardens like Variety Bagh and Char Bagh, Aishbagh, Badshah Bagh, Sikandar Bagh, Kaisar Bagh. Kaisar Bagh was not a garden, it was a palace complex, but known as a Kaisar Bagh. So fine, I have discussed Kaisar Bagh also. So all these discussions may be interesting, may be boring. It brings forth something to your mind that after all, when we discuss Lucknow's architecture or Lucknow's beauty or Lucknow's landscaping, whether it's Nawabi or colonial, then what are we really, do we really know what we're talking about? Now I'll make myself clear that we said this X building was okay, this Y garden was okay, but during the 1857 cleansing and post 1857 cleansing, so many structures were demolished and so many structures were reappropriated and modified. So do we really know? Our knowledge base is so weak that if I or you or anybody starts writing on Lucknow's architecture, his source is very, very minimal, very small. So he actually doesn't know what was there. So supposing I do not know what was inside Sikandar Bagh, I do not know, nobody else knows, then what to write about Sikandar Bagh? It was Sikandar Mahal, this, that, fine. But what was inside the garden? Nobody knows. So when we discuss architecture, what are we discussing? Our knowledge base is so poor. That is my worry, and that is what I try to discuss from whatever little detail I find, maybe a line, maybe two sentences, that okay, acha, aisa tha, you know, that kind of thing. Like Aishbagh, I'll tell you. Aishbagh, nobody really knows what was inside Aishbagh. What pavilion was inside, what gateway was inside, what palace was there or not. Nobody knows. So one sketch is there of William Daniel of Aishbagh. I have given it in my book. Simply you can get an idea, okay, there was a baradari, fine, there might have been a pavilion, okay, Aishbagh. I am sad to say that Aishbagh's baradari still exists. Some of you might be knowing of its ruins. But in its heydays, what was Aishbagh like? No details are available, at least to me. So how to discuss Nawabi architecture when your knowledge base is so poor? That is a worrying thing. So I try to gather as many details as possible, and I present to you in a small book so you can like buy it and get whatever information is scattered about in a single capsule. Regarding a little more detail about whatever I have written here, we all know about the Nawabs of Lucknow or Nawabs of Awadh, and who is the famous Nawab of Awadh? Wajid Ali Shah. But Wajid Ali Shah was not a Nawab. But who will go into all those technicalities of what is a Nawab and what is a king and what is a Badshah? Fine. Even the zoo you see today is called Nawab Wajid Ali Shah Zoological Garden, right? He is not a Nawab. So we can go nitpicking. Let's leave it. So Lucknow is famous for its Nawabs, and the Nawab is Wajid Ali Shah. And it's famous for its Begums, and the Begum is Begum Hamsat Mahal. But is that all? Is that all what Awadh is all about? Wajid Ali Shah and Begum Hamsat Mahal? No. For me, Awadh is a very big entity, and Lucknow is a very fantastic structure in the middle of that entity. And I would like to discuss all the people who gave their little bit, maybe significant, maybe insignificant, but in those times they did give some contribution, they did do something, and then their names were lost in the pages of history. And what we remember today is very little about, sparse knowledge about. Even in the Nawabs, you see, there was such fantastic people like Saadat Ali Khan, Muhammad Ali Shah, and they created such fantastic structures, but we don't remember them. Lucknow means Rumi Darwaza, Asifullah, and Wajid Ali Shah, Kaisar Bagh, and Bhai Bhai. So it's very sad. And a lot many people visited during those heydays of Nawabi rule and colonial rule, and they left their mark, a little mark or a big mark, but they did leave their mark. And now you visit a cemetery, you will find a gravestone, or you will find a road sign, and you wonder. I wonder especially when I was a little boy, and you see the names by Clyde Road and Outram Road and Barrow Road and Quinton Road and Green Road, and who are these guys? I mean, kya hai? Nobody remembers, nobody cares. But these people, British officers, and they did leave a mark on the city, maybe good, maybe bad. So what happened? From where did they come? Where did they go? How did they die? Where are they buried now? Are they buried in India? Are they just lost? Like Sleeman, most of you know that Sleeman was famous for his thagi and sati and all that. Not many would know that Sleeman had a very negative role in the annexation of Awadh, and he had a bad end. He couldn't even reach Great Britain. He died in sea and his body was thrown into the ocean. So that kind of thing. So all these fantastic little details, these trivia, not only the British officials, painters, and you have people like Makadarzi or Taylor, or you have military adventurer like Claude Martin or Anton Collier, and so many people, they left their marks. And now what do you see? Maybe you see a crumbling gravestone, maybe you see a road name which has been just painted over and given a new makeover, but that old timers still remember that old name of Green Road or Latouche Road. So personally, I feel that these guys or these ladies or whoever this was, a priest called Reverend Paul Hampton, or a court official like Tiket Rai, all these should get their due. All these were significant in their own times. All these people, they left their marks, but we don't care about it. And who has the time in this era of instant information, of smartphones and internet access? Who has the time to delve as to where Latouche is buried? Who was he? Who has the time to bother that, okay, this is Tiket Rai Kapul. So who was this Tiket Rai? Was he good? Was he bad? What did he do? What was his contribution? How did he meet his end? Who has the time? I don't blame anybody, because you need a lot of dedication and you need a lot of, what I can say, mad sort of fascination, which I unfortunately have. That okay, kuch karna hai, to let's go in it. Otherwise, don't do it at all. Don't depend on the internet, because that's very, very superficial and very, very erroneous. So basically, as you see, I am a man of science. And a man of chemistry for that matter. And a man of chemistry, for a chemistry guy, even an electron matters, One carbon is something and two carbon is something. What is carbon? Carbon is koila. Koila kuch nahi hota. But for a chemistry guy, a carbon atom and two carbon atoms make a hell of a difference. One electron here and one electron there make a hell of a difference. So when a person of my research training, for which all these intricate details are very important, I cannot dare to be very, very casual about things. That I listen to a story or I listen to an account and I just reproduce it in my book, because that will be blasphemy for me. I come across a lot of folk tales and very casual type of descriptions and accounts that, okay, fine, this was the palace and this Nawab was staying and this Nawab told this to his Begum and the Begum said this thing to the maid and the maid said this thing to the Nawab, that kind of conversation. Do you think anybody has heard that conversation? No. Then how you are reproducing all these things? Maybe it's good for a folk tale, or maybe it's good for a historical fiction, but it should not form part of history. So when I come across something, any trivia or anything for that matter, be it architecture, be it a biographical detail, I keep on cross-checking that, okay, is this authentic? Is it worth writing about, or is it just a fairy tale, or is it just imagination? Now I'll give you an example. Can I come on time here? Can I speak for just
Go ahead.
If you have bored, please tell me. This is my favorite subject, so I can go on. So when I come across these accounts, I feel sad also, and I'll give you a small example. That if a falsehood, or if this kind of thing is repeatedly imposed upon you or imposed upon me, then it forms a part of our thinking. And that is why I basically, personally I'm speaking of myself, I avoid historical fiction because I think they are trash. Nobody should not mess around with historical people and historical events and historical persona. This is just not done. But it is done and the genre is very popular also. But I avoid like anything. And I feel a little sick also when I see that people who have actually lived are being involved in all sorts of strange, incidents and funny type of things, just to make it a popular thing. But leave it aside. I'll give you a specific example of how our mindset and how our thinking is changed. Now supposing I just tell you Akbar. So in your mind, immediately the image of Prithviraj Kapoor will come. So that Akbar means Prithviraj Kapoor. So that is the power of this constant media and constant reinforcing that, okay, Akbar was like Prithviraj Kapoor. But that's not true. So the point I'm trying to make is that if a falsehood is repeated 10 times, 20 times, 100 times, it starts becoming part of history, it starts becoming part of fact. And that is where we have to treat very carefully, because a point comes in which a person who believes in all this trash, he will like stand up and he will challenge you that no, Akbar was like this. अब आप लड़ लो उससे या आप चुप रहो. You have two options. So regarding Lucknow, if some silly story is multiplied or duplicated or repeated again and again and again, and ultimately it becomes part of Lucknow history, and then say, oh, Lucknow has been like your Hossainabad clock tower. You just search in the net about Hossainabad clock tower, and you will find that, oh, Nasiruddin Hyder built it, and the sultans, mind it, the sultans Awadh built it, and it was built in this, and it was. Then you start cross-checking that, when this tower was built and Nasiruddin Hyder was not even alive, no one above was around then, and how come Nasiruddin Hyder built a tower? So this sort of thing, is putting around, and I believe it's my duty, and I believe it's the duty of all our heritage lovers, that whatever you write, please be sure that you are giving the most authentic information possible. And I don't say 100% authentic, never, because history is very subjective. But still, let us be sure from at least our side that whatever we are writing or whatever we are speaking, it should be genuine, it should be authentic, it should be believable, and not just any piece of imagination that somebody has come up with and then it's being propagated. So, my dear friends, I have taken enough of time. I don't know how much I spoke, maybe, I don't know, half an hour or something. So, it's a subject very close to my heart, and I like to speak on it, and I hope you enjoyed my talk and I shared my feelings with you. I hope that you will enjoy my book, and of course, this is not a book of science, so definitely there will be errors and there will be some issues. So, you excuse me for that, but from my side, I have tried to give you details and descriptions and photographs which might be of interest to you, might be of interest to Lucknow lovers. And picking this book in your hand, I hope that you will have a great time. Thank you very much once again. Any questions? If any questions, I can take, or you can put out the question in the interaction session.
Thank you, sir. That was very enlightening. यही तशवीश शब व रोज है बंगले में, लखनऊ फिर कभी दिखलाए मुकद्दर मेरा। इसी के साथ हम बड़े ही अदब व एहतराम से खैर मकदम करते हैं जनाब शहंशाह मिर्ज़ा साहब का कि वो माइक पर तशरीफ़ लाएं और हमारे सामईन को अपने कलाम से नवाजें।
Adab, Namaskar, good evening, my dear panelists, respected ladies and gentlemen. One for sure, I'm not going to speak as long as my friend and elder brother Dr PC Sarkar spoke. He's an expert on this subject, I'm not. It gives me a lot of pleasure to be back in Lucknow. Lucknow is the city with which I share a very, very strong emotional bond. I had the occasion, an opportunity of visiting and living in many cities in India and abroad, and I hold Lucknow to be a very, very special city. And those of you who live in Lucknow should feel proud that you are living in one of the best cities, at least in Asia, if not the world. I'll give you one small example. Today I landed at the airport and I wanted to book a cab and there was some problem. So I took the help of a girl who was manning a counter in the prepaid taxi booth. And she readily agreed and she helped me in getting a cab. This would never happen in Delhi or Bombay. And I think this is the spirit of Lucknow. When Dr PC Sarkar told me that he's writing a book on Lucknow, I was very happy. Because as he said, there are too many preconceived ideas which people have. Not only about Lucknow, about any city in the world, about any personality. And it becomes very important that at some point of time, someone should come forward and rectify those mistakes, rectify those misconceptions, and try to present a story which is correct, which is accurate, which is logical. I had the occasion of reading many books on Lucknow, but this book, written by a scientist, makes it very, very interesting because he's looking at a subject from a different angle altogether. And I hope that this book will create a lot of awareness, not only among the people who are living in Lucknow, but entire Uttar Pradesh and all over India. It is very important to create awareness about our glorious past. When you go abroad, say to any country in Europe, you will find that they have gone out of their way to preserve their heritage, their culture, their tradition. See how beautifully they have preserved their buildings. Unfortunately, that doesn't take place in our country. But a book like this, I'm sure, would create a lot of awareness. It would make people read, think, take interest in what they see, and especially the younger generation. I'm a member of INTAC in Calcutta and various other heritage groups. And from time to time, we conduct seminars, workshops, and heritage walks where we try to discover the glorious past of our country. The great Urdu poet Mirza Ghalib had lived in Calcutta for about 1.5 to 2 years. And he lived in a place which was behind Bethune College. Bethune College was perhaps one of the oldest colleges in India. And I remember once we had gone to see the house in which Mirza Ghalib had lived. It was a group of people whose mother tongue was not Urdu, who didn't know much Urdu, but they were passionate about the ghazal of Mirza Ghalib. So they were very eager to go and see the house in which he lived. So after we saw the house, we wanted to have light refreshment. And there's a very old sweet shop very close to that house. So we went to that sweet shop and we ordered some sweets. And while we were having some sweets, just out of curiosity, I asked one of the employees over there in Bengali, do you know where Mirza Ghalib lived? So he looked at me and he said, no, I don't know. Then he asked me, do you have any idea where he lived? Then I pointed towards that building. So very innocently he told me, he said, no, I don't know where he lived. Then he took out his phone and he said, if you know his telephone number, you can make a call. I'm narrating this incident not because I want to make fun of him. It's an interesting incident But I'm trying to say that our awareness is so low.
True.
We have to create this awareness. There's a road in Calcutta which is named after Mirza Ghalib. It is in the center of the Calcutta. But till date I don't know why that road is named after Mirza Ghalib. There has to be some logic. We had Dr PC Sarkar, a scientist, and his approach is very logical like any other scientist. There has to be some logic, some rationale behind naming something, behind doing something. Lucknow and Calcutta share a very strong bond. As you all know, the last ruler of Awadh, King Wajid Ali Shah, left Lucknow in 1856. And the last 31 years of his life he spent in Calcutta. I think, please pardon me if you think I'm wrong, I think Wajid Ali Shah is far more popular in Calcutta than what he is in Lucknow. I had said this to someone who was from Lucknow and he almost blocked me from his WhatsApp account. But you see, the fact is that Wajid Ali Shah lived in Calcutta for 31 years and he gave much more than the potato in biryani. Dr Sarkar had talked about the internet and he was right. There are too many errors, when we Google, when we search, because these are all free sites. People feel like writing, they write without checking whether it is accurate, whether it is correct. And as he said that, if a wrong is repeated 100 times, 1,000 times, that becomes the truth. Very few people are there who would like to do research, who would like to read serious books, who would like to go deep and understand what is what. For example, you talk about Wajid Ali Shah and the common notion is that he was exiled to Calcutta. He was never exiled to Calcutta. He went to Calcutta on his own free will. In fact, when he was released from Fort William, he was given an opportunity to live anywhere in the country. But he chose Madhya Pradesh in Calcutta because that reminded him of Gomti. And he spent the 31 years of his life in Madhya Pradesh, where he created a mini Lucknow. And even today, those of you who have not been to Calcutta would be happy to know that, Madhya Pradesh is often referred as mini Lucknow because of the language, because of the etiquette, because of, the pace of life, because of, people's hobby, people's love for poetry. And that goes to show how important Lucknow is for us. So whenever we talk about Lucknow, we feel very nostalgic. There's a lot of fond memories. And I always look for an opportunity to come to Lucknow. And I hope very soon Dr PC Sarkar will write his third book and invite me once again. So before I conclude, thank you very much for coming. And please buy this book. Please give this book to your friends and relatives. Give them as birthday present, marriage anniversary present, and for anything. And I hope this coming year will be a year full of happiness, joy, good health for us, and COVID will be a thing of past. Thank you very much. Khuda Hafiz.
Thank you, sir. We now begin the discussion about the book. For this, we have one of the most celebrated writers from Lucknow, Miss Meru Jafar, amongst us, who has written a series of books about the city, including the Book of Muhammad, the Book of Muinuddin Chishti, Love and Life in Lucknow, and her latest release, A Shadow of the Past, a short biography of Lucknow. She graduated from Kaifi Azmi Academy and did her masters from the University of Lucknow, and her forthcoming book focuses on Urdu poets in 19th century Lucknow. A round of applause for Ms. Jafar.
Sound right? You can hear me. So good to see a house full. Lots of friends and known faces. I'm so happy to be here this evening. Thank you, Lucknow Expressions, for inviting me to this very distinguished panel. I want to start the discussion with a huge sigh. So, अपनी ज़बान में कहते हैं या इलाही माजरा क्या। आज या इलाही से शुरू करते हैं अपनी बात इसलिए कि ये क्या खत है, ये क्या जुनू है। ये खत है कि जुनू है कि किताब पे किताब लखनऊ पे लोग लिखते चले जाते हैं। तो इसी पे थोड़ा गुफ्तगू करेंगे, ऑथर को ड्रिल करेंगे कि what is the need of another book on Lucknow? What is in this book which we don't already know about our beloved city? तो और जिस जगह हम लोग मिल रहे हैं वो इतनी मतलब जगह तो हिस्टोरिक नहीं है, जगह नहीं है, लेकिन जिसके नाम से ये जगह है। आज हम कैफी आज़मी एकेडमी में इकट्ठा हुए हैं, लखनऊ के आशिकों के बीच में हैं, तो जाहिर है मजाज की याद बेशक आएगी और तभी इन अल्फाजों का भी इस्तेमाल किया है, ख़त और जुनू वगैरह। मजाज कैफी साहब के साथी थे और फिदाए लखनऊ के लाइन में अव्वल नंबर से खड़े रहते थे। ही वॉज टोटली, जिन्होंने पढ़ी है उनकी खूबसूरत नज़्म लखनऊ पे, तो वो नज़्म गवाह है कि कितनी मोहब्बत करते थे मजाज साहब अपने शहर से। ये अकेडमी इस बात की गवाह है कि मजाज जावेद अख्तर साहब के मामू थे, कैफी आज़मी के अब्बा और जावेद अख्तर के ससुर। तो ये सारी मिली जुली मेमोरीज लेके हम लोग यहाँ आज बैठे हैं और ये हमारा छोटा सा बोर्ड था इस कैफी आज़मी की याद में और इस जगह के ऊपर। और इस वेन्यू पे बड़े ख़ास मेहमान भी आज हैं। आप बाहर से आए हैं, कलकत्ता से आए, मिर्ज़ा साहब विपुल यहाँ की जानी मानी प्राइड ऑफ लखनऊ, बहुत ज़बरदस्त पोएट, स्केच भी करती हैं, पेंटर भी हैं, आर्किटेक्ट भी हैं। आई एम very very humbled and pleased to be sharing the dais with them. तो शुरुआत करते हैं, देखिए कहाँ से शुरुआत करते हैं। कुछ मिर्ज़ा साहब से गुजारिश है कि अपने दोस्त ऑथर आज के स्टार ऑफ द इवनिंग से पूछें कि जड़ क्या है इनके खत, इनके जुनून की जड़ क्या है। और कुछ और अगर आप ऑथर से सवाल करना चाहते हैं ताकि हमें कुछ थोड़ा सा और इस किताब के बारे में मालूमात हो। और आपसे मैं पूछना चाहती हूँ कि what does it mean in this day and age, you know, in this modern democratic day and age, to be a descendant of the former rulers of this region? You know, what is going on in your mind when you stand in the middle of Kaisarbagh? What are you thinking? I'm sure you don't have the same thoughts as I do. तो पहले तो आप थोड़ा सा पिन ट्रिक करिए सरकार साहब, क्यों इतने अभी एक और किताब लिखना है लखनऊ पे, तो ये खत की वजह क्या है?
मेरू जी, आप तो लैपटॉप लेके आई हैं, मुझे देख के डर लग रहा है। क्या क्या आप लिख के लाए हो?
कागज पे काम करना बंद कर दिया है, वो एनवायरमेंटल इश्यूज की।
सुनिए ना मेरू जी, मुझे कोई पुरानी दुश्मनी तो नहीं है, कुछ आप जो है ऐसा मत पूछिएगा कि मुझे भागना पड़े यहाँ से। लेकिन हाँ, मैं आपकी बहुत मदद करता हूँ।
छेड़छाड़ तो
I admire her voice, especially I admire her biryani, and I admire her zeal for Lucknow. So anyway, so what you asked me was why these series of books. So as I told in my address also that I left Lucknow very many years ago, and I did miss my city because due to frequent transfers and frequent change of cultures, I did develop a sort of fascination कि यहाँ पे एक मेरा hometown था, पता नहीं उसका क्या हाल है, and that kind of thing. But I was very young, maybe 22 or something at that point of time. उसके बाद हुआ कि the internet came about and I got easy access to information, but I saw that the information was not very correct in most of the times. Then it became a sort of habit, you can say, or a fascination that, okay, try to gather the authentic information for myself, not for anyone. And I used to write small articles on Facebook or here and there, just for my, not for earning money or anything, just for my personal satisfaction. Then there used to be a newspaper called Lucknow Tribune, and they contacted me that, sir, can we use your articles in our paper? Fine, go ahead, no payment. Just we'll give you a page, you write whatever you want. Then I used to write for them for one full year I wrote. They gave me a full heritage page, and although the circulation was not that good, I got a fair amount of publicity due to that. Now what happened was, since the paper was not very well circulated and people used to contact me that how to buy the paper, how to read your article. I said, that's a big problem. Then why don't you compile your articles and write a book? I said, no, that's a new problem. So anyway, my previous book was basically a collection of essays. So what I had written for Tribune, I just embellished it a little bit. I did a bibliography and other details, and I had it published. And people said that, okay, now people want to read about what you write and what you know, so why do you keep to yourself? Just, write a book and publicize it. So that was one part. Now about this one. That fascination continued, that keep on reading and learning about Lucknow, and then also informing other Lucknow lovers that, okay, this I have learned and you also share my knowledge. Because as I said, that who has got time to go into so much detail. So since I am having that inclination, so I'll share my knowledge with you. And whatever I learn, I keep on writing. And I like writing, basically from my childhood, from my school days also, I used to write. And I enjoy writing. So okay, this is my contribution towards that now. And okay, people enjoy, people learn a bit. And, it's not my intention to earn money. Even to my publisher, I said that money is not the issue. I want a huge distribution network that should reach to, far corners. That's what I want, that people should read and enjoy. You don't give me a paisa royalty, I don't care. I don't need money. It's God's case, but let me to give it no. But you please distribute my book, and I'm happy to say that my publisher is a very traditional publisher. He's got a huge reach all over the world. So that I'm lucky that my book will reach to very many corners. I may not earn money, I don't want, but as long as I get a good readership.
Thank you so much for continuously, persistently documenting different aspects of the city. We are the beneficiaries, so please keep your passion alive and keep writing. Good luck. तो मिर्जा साहब, आप थोड़ा अपने दिल नादान से पूछिए कि what does it mean to be a descendant of the former rulers of this part of the world? कैसा बात जब आप जाते हैं तो आप what thoughts cross your mind?
Of course, I don't believe in zodiac signs, but I'm a Cancerian because I was born in the middle of July. And it has been said that Cancerians are dreamers. So, yes, you are right. When I go to Kaisar Bagh, when I am in Asati Bambara, when I am in Residency, when I am in different parts of Lucknow, I try to visualize how different the life must have been 100, 150, 200 years ago when Awadh Nawabs and rulers were over here. It's a mixed feeling. I feel sad. I feel disappointed that everything is lost. There's a huge jump in population. There's a huge fall in moral, social values. Lucknow was at one time known for its delicate language and tehzeeb. because of assimilation of people coming from different parts of the country, different parts of the world, the language is evolving. This is happening not only in Lucknow but all over the world. At times I feel frustrated also when I see numerous monuments are not being taken care of. There's encroachment, graffitis are being written on them, people are using it as urinals. But there's one incident, which happened about 20-25 years ago. I think that was the year when I came over here for my marriage, and we had gone to Asafi Mambara. It was a very small incident, but it is still somewhere very fresh in my mind, which I want to share with all of you. As you enter Asafi Mambara, there's a flight of stairs you go up, and you find there a number of guides standing over there. And there was, we had gone there the month of May, and there was a booth where they were selling cold drinks, and we had gone there to buy some cold drinks. And I saw a stray dog coming towards us. And all these guides were busy looking for clients like us. They were busy for selling their cold drink. They were busy to, show the people Bhul Bhulaiya. But no one bothered that, he should not allow the stray dog to enter the Mambara. That gave me a lot of hurt. That you are earning from there, but at least have some respect for the monument. We can't build that monument now. But at least have some monument, at least have some respect for the place from where you are getting your bread and butter. अगर उसी जगह को आप इज्जत नहीं दे रहे जहाँ से आपको दाल चावल का पैसा आ रहा है तो आप क्या करिएगा? So these are some of the feelings, but at the same time, you have to understand that times have changed. Nothing is fixed. So we have to accept realities, and we have accepted that these are some of the harsh realities of life. Things have to move on. So it's a very mixed feeling and difficult to describe in 1 or 2 sentences. But I hope whatever happens, it should happen good for the country, it should happen good for the community, it should happen good for the society, and let's hope for the best.
Thank you so much. Yes, we can empathize with your feeling regarding the disrespect to our monuments and to our shared heritage. Also, there's a lot of confusion or rumors about Wajid Ali Shah and his more than 300 wives. So here I want to also correct me if I'm wrong. Mirza Sahab is a descendant of Wajid Ali Shah through his wife Begum Khasman. And we, Lucknow is also familiar with some other descendants, from some other wives. So today we are entertaining and hosting, Lucknow is hosting Mirza Sahab, who is a descendant of Wajid Ali Shah through his wife Begum Khasman. So thank you so much for being here and for sharing your words and sentiments with us. Maybe we move now to lovely Vipul. Actually, this question is to all of you that how long do you think we will all Lucknow lovers continue to drool over the past of Lucknow? What about Lucknow as it is today, here and now? So maybe Vipul will talk a little bit about, यहाँ का जो आर्किटेक्चर है लखनऊ का सुना है स्पेशल है, तो क्या चीज़ इतनी नायाब है हमारे लखनऊ के आर्किटेक्चर में कि लोग दूर दूर से उसे देखने आते हैं? और जैसे अभी मिर्ज़ा साहब ने कहा, अफसोस भी होता है when you see the architectural jewels neglected. तो आप थोड़ा सा रोशनी डालें.
मेरू आपने एक ये क्वेश्चन ऐसा पूछा है कि जिसके बारे में यहाँ पे जितने लोग बैठे हैं उनके पास बहुत सारे जवाब, लेकिन जिसका मीनिंग एक ही होगा कि वहाँ लखनऊ, वहाँ लखनऊ. In short, what I can say is a monument of human art. It's of course an epitome of art, beauty and sophistication. Of course, किताबों पे किताबें लिखी जा रही हैं इसके ऊपर, और फिर भी मन नहीं मानता, और फिर से कई सारे राइटर्स, एक ही नहीं, सरकार साहब जैसे कई राइटर्स रोज एक नई किताब शुरू कर देते हैं, और in fact they are forced to do it that way. So Lucknow is actually in spirit and soul everything fine and fragile in abundance, that I would say, fine and fragile. So how we keep it and how we upkeep it, that's a big question. But जैसे शरार साहब ने कहा कि उस समय, of course, when he wrote in 1800s, it was Baghdad and Cordova of East and Nishapur and Bukhara of India. तो ये उसके जलवे थे, और अगर मिर्ज़ा साहब को कुछ बातें इस समय अच्छी नहीं लग रही हैं जिस तरह से हम रख पा रहे हैं, and of course being an active member of INTAC, I'm really pained, and of course we should look into it. That's what I can say.
Thank you so much. कैसे करेंगे इतना opulent class? How do we share? Is this working?
Yes, working. It's working.
You are very audible, right?
जी जी. So कैसे करेंगे? कैसे अपनी shared heritage को, common heritage को preserve करेंगे? कब तक वो रहेगी हमारे साथ, ये भी नहीं मालूम है. So anyway, these are huge challenges in present times, especially when the lives of human citizens are threatened. तो monuments को preserve करने बाद की बात है. अभी हम लोगों को अपनी security और अपनी रक्षा करनी होगी. कैसे करेंगे ये भी नहीं मालूम है. But that is जी जी.
ये जो आप पूछी कैसे करेंगे, मैं आपको 2-3 एग्जाम्पल्स देना चाहता हूँ और आप लोगों के साथ भी शेयर करना चाहता हूँ. जैसे सरकार साहब दीवाने हैं लखनऊ के बारे में, वैसे ही कैलकाटा में एक साहब है, सुभाष दत्ता उनका नाम है, इज अ ग्रीन एक्टिविस्ट और वो एनवायरनमेंट के दीवाने हैं. Calcutta, as you know, is one of the largest cities in India. The pollution level is very high. कैलकाटा में जनवरी के महीने में कैलकाटा बुक फेयर होता है, और ये पहले कैलकाटा मैदान में होता था, और इतनी धूल उड़ती थी कि आसपास की जितनी बिल्डिंग्स थे, जितने दरख्त थे, जितनी गाड़ियां थी, all used to be covered by dust. And one fine morning, Subhash Datta, who is a chartered accountant by profession, he thought of doing something. And in India, as you know, it's very difficult, because Calcutta Book Fair had the blessings of West Bengal state government, and in those days, we had this left front government, which was very strong. So he filed a public interest litigation in Calcutta High Court. The case went on for some time, and finally Calcutta High Court passed a landmark judgment saying that the Calcutta Book Fair cannot be held in that place. So it was a great victory for this environmentalist. Then there is another place called Dhakuriya Lake, where during one festival a lot of people used to go and they used to throw the material in that pond. Once again Subhash Chakravarti filed a public interest litigation. First year nothing happened, but after that the court and the local administration and the police made it a point that that pond is not disturbed. So public interest litigation is a very, very strong weapon. A lot of things can happen, if we use public interest litigation.
Thank you so much. Mr. Godin, अगर सही pronounce किया ना आपका नाम,
What's in the name?
Rose. Rose.
By any other name would smell just as
तो
sweet.
अपनी आप खुशबू फैलाइए.
जी, हम यहाँ पे कुछ और जोड़ना चाहेंगे जो हमारे मिर्जा जी ने कहा आप लोगों से. I realize that in the changing situation, which is quite challenging, we need to create an awareness among the young generation. Now a shortcut method would be to organize programs in schools, in educational institutions, targeting the younger generation, making them aware. Because legislation, as we know, India, we have the best laws, but when it comes to implementation and the ground reality, that is where we probably face the biggest challenge. I've been born in Lucknow, and after I corresponded with Mr. PC Sarkar for several days, I realized the effort which he has put into this book. A book which may be only 250 pages, or maybe about 9 chapters or so, but the amount of effort to get so many details which the average man usually fails to observe when he is on his rounds in Lucknow, maybe in old Lucknow, visiting the main monuments which we are well aware of. It is the finer details where our author has observed and he has shared those details for others to observe. And that's what I find so beautiful in his effort, that it goes just beyond the standard places of interest. There's so much more in this book which probably a reader would not be able to understand or get the best out of unless he reads it over and over again. Read to understand, and ultimately, of course, when we want to bring about awareness, we have to act. That's what I think. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, Vipul, please.
That reminds me, Mr. Godin, that Intact Lucknow had been organizing these kind of programs. You must have read in newspapers as well, catching the young actually in schools. Like Clean Monument we had, Mehru, you have in fact attended quite a few programs of ours where at least not less than 200 school children were brought at the Maqbara, Sadat Ali Khan ka Maqbara, and there we had the DM Lucknow and whatnot, all top-notch. Yes, that was the Clean Monument campaign, and especially with school children, and the adults of course were welcome in that. Then we had My City, My Lucknow, that kind of campaigns off and on in for school children, where we hold painting competitions, essay competitions on the love of your city. That's it. So these kind of programs we keep on having. It's just that 2 years we had this gap. We are not able to hold, but inshallah हम आगे भी करते रहेंगे आप लोग की दुआओं के साथ.
Heritage walks also you have.
Yes, lots of heritage. Quite a few people over here had participated in our programs, and I plan to continue them, of course, as time permits. and time changes with the end of pandemic.
Another program I remember you organized was with students of architecture.
Yes, yes.
And we went and also checked out monuments.
Right,
outside
right.
of-
Husainabad area, that the clock tower and of course the Chota Imambara, the picture gallery. We had in fact the senior students also, the students, the masters in architecture, the students who were doing, they wanted to know more about the architecture of Lucknow, where we had taken around 100 students over there.
That
So,
was wonderful, wonderful.
thank you, thank you.
So if Expressions allows, the host allows, we can open the...
Good evening. Congratulations, Dr. Sarkar. Just would want to ask, yes, I know what will be happening in terms of the citizens who heritage walks, school efforts and so on and so forth. What Mr. Borden has said is a very relevant thing. You know, that we have too many people who are actually enemies of monuments rather than
Enemies of who?
Monuments.
Yes.
Very few people who are actually interested in the monuments or in the culture or in the heritage. We want to seem to convert all our cities into Singapore. And having no disrespect to Singapore, Singapore is a lovely place. They are very different. And we want these steel and glass buildings, and we find that उसको बदल दो तो अच्छा ज़्यादा अच्छा लगेगा. So how? My question actually is, how do we increase the number of people who are more, heritage friendly? I don't see that happening. I mean, I'm sure people here intact, the citizens group, everyone is making huge efforts. But I feel that in this whole vast population, how do we generate a bigger?
Who will answer that loaded question? Or if we have somebody who who has an answer to this.
I can. Please. If the answer comes from the audience, nothing like that.
I could guess, if you create a financial opportunity around these heritage monuments, some kind of an opportunity where it generates financial activity, suddenly you'll find people taking care of these monuments and also making sure, because the livelihood would start being circulated around that monument. The point is, it's in nobody's interest. Everybody is worried about Papi Pate and the future of the generations. So the past is being forgotten and being erased very conveniently. Suddenly, if we were to create, like you have, a lot of heritage buildings have hotels. Now suddenly you see the state of those hotels and the state of those monuments. If similarly, I'm not saying they are maqbaras, you could develop them in a different way. But the kind is you got to increase, you make it more financially relevant. Otherwise they'll be lost, they'll be broken down at some point of time. And I feel you have to make it more financially relevant. If you're talking about the future, and like what Meru said, you said something about the past and how the past is going to be forgotten. I would say that the past is equally important. One step backwards and two steps forward. You take a recoil from the past and you can rewrite history, you can do a lot of things. But the aroma of the past, you cannot wish it away. That whiff of the past lingers on. And it is people like us of the old generation who have lived, born and brought up here, all of us. I think we will carry it forward. And the interesting part is whether we can create that ingenuity and create that interest and that aura of the past in our children and our generation. It will continue. And ultimately from dust to dust it will happen. We too shall be. But the fact is, if we want it to continue, make it more relevant to the future, not to the past.
Very true. And very well expressed, and it's actually the sentiments of the people sitting here. I would add to that one more initiative taken by our body intact. In fact, we had given this similar kind of proposal for Chadar Manzil actually. And when the redevelopment and conservation of that monument was to take place. In fact, we had given this proposal in front of the Chief Minister and the Chief Secretary also about developing it into a cultural center.
Like India International Center.
Yes, yes, something
It
on
took place. We had a large meeting on that score.
on those lines, and where of course the large chunk of the palace would be of course the cultural center, which would house a museum, handicrafts center and all those kind of things. Other than that, along the river Gomti, we had given a proposal of Lucknow sort of shopping kind of thing, handicraft shopping along the river front, and also boat ride experience from that particular point to Shaheed Smarak, and then again from there to come back here. So it was basically a full-fledged cultural center with light and sound show. People would come, people would shop, people would stay there. They have a feel of the environment of the buildings on both the side of the river bank, and then they can spend some time, and that love for Lucknow would basically be regenerated, and they can imbibe those sentiments and go back home full of love for the city. That shopping was an important and integral part, where all the handicrafts from Zardozi to the taste of mangoes, from chicken curry to all terracotta toys, all those, the dying arts of Lucknow could be showcased, and the people could actually shop from there. So it was a reviving kind of concept, a revival of dying arts with the cultural center, of course with the museum, and the living museum where the people could also experience the living of royalties or whatever I think some people are doing privately in the city. Those kind of proposals we had given to the government, and of course government was supposed to do something. I don't have much idea what is the status now, but on what lines they are doing and how slow they are, that is the basic concern. And how well it would come up, that is another question. That's it.
Any other questions?
Is it okay if I add something to the question as well? I think as you said, enemies of our monuments are mainly led by the youth of our cities, unfortunately. And maybe that's because they are not, they do not understand the importance of these monuments, mainly because in our curriculum, we are not taught much about the heritage and the history of a city, apart from the basic things that we've been told, oh, this is the Hussainabad Chowka, this is the Vada Imam Bada. Maybe if we tell them since the beginning, since childhood, that these cities are important, these cities somehow contribute to the identity of you as an individual as well. Maybe they'll understand that, and they'll try to keep the heritage of our city intact. And there was also this tourism initiative taken by the central government, where they were paying young adults to go and visit heritage sites in the entire country so that they could promote these sites. Maybe that can also be an initiative at the state level, where they can channelize the energy of these youths into something positive rather than something destructive. And maybe next time they won't be writing names on walls of famous monuments. So, thank you.
That will be more.
In Calcutta, the most famous landmark is Victoria Memorial, and Tata Literary Festival is held over there. They have a section where they invite children. They sing, they dance, they paint. There is book reading, and thousands of children come. I had the occasion of addressing them twice or thrice, and many of these children with whom I interacted, they said that they had never been inside Victoria Memorial. and seeing the magnificent Victoria Memorial, the lush green garden of Victoria Memorial, the interest was generated. They said, we would like to come and see what it is inside. So, this could be, one avenue of holding programs in important historical monuments. Indirectly it would attract the youth, it would attract, different sections of society, and, a curiosity will be raised that, let's go and see what it is, let's find out. Unfortunately, in many places, there are not even boards describing what this place is all about. Either it is in the local language or, the board is put up over there and, the ink has faded, so you can't really make out what is written over there. These are some of the steps which we can take, and, I think it's not difficult. A beginning has to be made.
एक मेरा सवाल सरकार साहब से। पीसी सरकार साहब का नाम हमने एक जादूगर के रूप में जाना था, दर्शन साहब को देख रहे हैं, और आपकी किताब भी वैसा ही जादुई असर छोड़ेगी, ऐसे हम सब लोग को उम्मीद है। मैं आपसे थोड़ा इस बारे में जानना चाहता था कि इतिहास और उसमें जो फिक्शन का ब्लेंड होता है वो आपकी किताब में कितना है? क्या हम आपकी किताब में केवल दस्तावेज माने जिसको कि रेफरेंस बुक के रूप में लिया जाए? क्योंकि जो भी आपने जिन चीज़ों का भी सहारा लिया होगा, दस्तावेजों का जिनका भी, तो ज़्यादातर दरबारी इतिहासकारों का लिखा हुआ होता है, और वो दरबारी इतिहासकार कितना इंडिपेंडेंट होते हैं ये हम जानते हैं। तो उसको कितना मैं प्रमाणित मानूं आपके लिखे हुए दस्तावेज को या इतिहास को करने को?
जी शुक्रिया। इस किताब का जो कंटेंट है उसमें इस टाइप का कोई एस्पेक्ट है नहीं कि किसी दरबारी ने या किसी कोटियर ने या किसी जो नवाबी ऑफिशियल ने लिखा हो, इस टाइप का इसमें एस्पेक्ट इस किताब में है ही नहीं। आर्किटेक्चर पे है, जीवनियों पे है, और हमारे पुराने जो है जो बाग हुआ करते थे और हमारे जो गेट वे करते थे उनके क्या आर्किटेक्चरल फीचर हैं, वो पहले कैसे थे अब कैसे हैं। तो इनमें कुछ दरबारी वाली बात है नहीं, कोई नरेशन नहीं है, यानी किसी को इसमें कोट नहीं किया है कि इसने ऐसा कहा, इसने ऐसा कहा। ये तो सामने दिख रहा है कि ये क्या है, उसका मैंने डिस्क्रिप्शन दिया। तो कम से कम इस किताब में वो स्टोरी टेलिंग या कोई नैरेटिव या कोई फिक्शन या कोई पर्सन या कोई व्यक्ति विशेष के बारे में कभी नहीं। अच्छा, जो पीछे मैंने एक चैप्टर दिया जीवनियों पे, तो उसमें तो यही है कि वो कोई भी हो, चाहे वो ब्रिटिश ऑफिसर हो या वो हमारे नवाबी कोई ऑफिसर हो, उनकी पैदाइश, उन्होंने क्या किया, वो अच्छे थे, वो बदनाम हुए या वो बदनाम नहीं हुए, उनकी मौत कैसे हुई, वो कहाँ दफनाए गए, इस विषय पे मैंने बात की है। उनके इस टाइप की डिटेल है नहीं कि कुछ किसी ने डिस्क्राइब किया हो और उसको मैंने छाप दिया हो। तो उसमें कुछ सच भी हो सकता है, कुछ झूठ भी हो सकता है। वो बंदा पैदा हुआ, वो बंदा मरा, उसने इस दौरान ये काम किया, उसकी इससे दोस्ती थी, उससे इससे लड़ाई थी, और फिर उसका खात्मा हो गया, वो मर गया या उसको भगा दिया गया। इसी पे मैंने जो है ज़्यादातर जोर दिया है। तो कम से कम इस किताब में आपको मिलेगा नहीं कि कोई कंट्रोवर्सी हो या कोई फिक्शन वाली बात हो। अब एक गेट है, गेट आपके सामने है, गेट पहले कैसे था, गेट पहले कैसे था मैं कैसे कह रहा हूँ, क्योंकि उसकी फोटोज है मेरे पास या उसके आर्ट वर्क है मेरे पास। तो उसको डिस्क्राइब कर दिया, और अब कैसा है वो डिस्क्राइब कर दिया, डिफरेंस कर दिया, किसने तोड़ा ये बता दिया या किसने मॉडिफाई किया ये बता दिया। तो इसमें जो आपकी शंका है वो इस किताब में फिट नहीं हो पाएगी, इस किताब में वो कंटेंट ही नहीं है।
I'm really looking forward to reading your book, and I just want to ask you one thing. You are a chemistry person. Why I'm saying that is because this is the kind of language which is used among academics. He's a chemistry person, he's a sociologist, he's a history person, not historian. So the thing is that history as such has always been sort of taken a second, ranking to the rest of the subjects. because I have been in the teaching line for 40 years, and I always find that students would rather take up other subjects which they feel will be more useful for their careers than study history. So that is of course another matter which so this I think is a big lacunae, and because of that, when monuments are seen or monuments are looked at, or even history is taught, it is always with some kind of a very neutral and abhi ye to karni hai, so may as well do it, that kind of an attitude. So with your background in chemistry, have you been...
Amber color, and one gate, small gate is a white color. Because of some controversy, some legality, some problems are there. I'm sorry, PC, I'm going away from this. It's a maintenance of monuments, my question is that. So can Lucknow Expressions Society, even Rumi Gate is at the verge of demolishing. I'm sorry to use Bhagwan, Allah na kare kabhi aisa ho. But there is a big, there's a big catch in that. So can, as a Lucknowites, can we do anything for, can we draw attention of archaeology department for the maintenance of these monuments? जब maintenance जब monuments ही नहीं रहेंगे, तो किताब किस पे लिखी जाएगी?
So no, I'd like to, on behalf of the society, I'd like to just put in a word here.
Yes.
That we have recently started a series on YouTube called Landmark on the heritage old homes in Lucknow. Some known, some not known, but drawing attention to that fact. So the first of the series has been launched. It's called, it's on the Iqtida house. It's a 200-year-old house. Where I think the shooting for Suitable Boy took place. So what we are doing, our focus is going to be bring out those, and especially because now digitally I think everybody is very tech savvy and wants to see things. So once it's there on the portal and people see it, I think there will be greater awareness, and as Chandra Bhai said, that with I think financial incentives, things could be made better. The rest of course, that is up to the department's concerned, but on our part, this is what we're going to do.
It should be result oriented.
And
because of this Rumi Gate getting dilapidated, that is why the alternative road was created around that the Tilewali Masjid. That is why it came into operation, so that the heavy traffic could be diverted from there to the side road. That is what the genesis of this was. I was involved in that, so I'm aware of that. So as an EK, they are not concerned. The only thing is the pace of speed is all...
Speed is of course required. Thank you very much.
We had initiated Heritage Awards. If you remember, all Lucknowites, esteemed Lucknowites were invited in that program. That was supposed to, in fact, rather encourage the maintenance part of the old buildings of Lucknow, and of course the category was on residential and commercial that year, but we intend doing it in other categories also, so that more and more people find interest in maintaining their old properties. And of course the buildings which are under ASI, we don't have control on that, but the private property owners, they feel encouraged on these kind of initiatives. Intact is already taking.
Can I make a point here? Any member of CFL here, or any? Iqbal is there, and of course Aditi is gone. Anyway, so there's a group called Citizens for Lucknow, which is very active in whatever way they can. They organize. I am speaking on behalf of CFL. So I am in Calcutta, so I can't contribute much to CFL, but still I try to be active. And this group has certain achievements to its credit, and the biggest one, I think many of you might not know, I'd like to highlight it, was the reconstruction of the portico of the DRM office So this is a little story I like to share. I share with my wife, also I share with people, because that's the achievement which common citizens could achieve. What happened was, during the construction of the metro, there was a blocked portico of DRM office. DRM office, you know, is basically a railway office which has its genesis from the older British era colonial railway office and whatever. But anyway, during the construction of the metro, for the lift, that portico was removed and broken. So people were like offended that this is a colonial building with a certain heritage value. So why have you removed the portico? Although the portico was not very attractive, it had been blocked for very many decades. It was a very ugly structure. But still, it was a portico, and people from CFL, they got active. They met the officers, and after a long time with Ma'am Vipul, my dear friend, I'll just highlight her role. What happened was, the officials kept on changing, and nobody was interested. And all this. See, I'm sitting in Calcutta, but I'm aware of what is happening in Lucknow. Ultimately, they give the excuse that now the portico is gone and we do not have the architectural design for the portico. What kind of excuse is this? Then it was Vipul who supplied the architectural drawing to them, that this is the drawing, now you make it. No more excuses, and they did make it. And it's a very sleek and new version which you see in Hazratganj now. And the portico had been blocked for, I think, 30 years or so. Now it's open portico, it looks very beautiful. And whenever I get the opportunity, if somebody is there with me in Hazratganj, I show him that, see, this is the portico. And we people got together and we had it and restored. Otherwise, it was a gone case. So when people come together, of course, a lot of effort is required, but we do have some achievements. I'd like to add another point here, like my friend was telling, especially because he is associated with Universal, and I want to pinpoint the case of Jahangirabad mentioned, because as you all know, during Mayawati's tenure, the Hazratganj was given a makeover and it became a beautiful place. It was like wonderful. And then in the period of 10 years, again it is going to seed, and this Jahangirabad mansion, it is falling apart. And again the hoardings and the billboards and the towers and the iron grills and all coming, and they come up on the roof and everywhere, and people are putting up huge signboards. So I feel that, as you said, that some commercial angle should be there. Why? Commercial angle is there in Hazratganj. So we can't say that the money earning angle is not there, it is there. But how come the shopkeepers themselves, they are destroying the structure? Each one of them is getting destroyed, whether it is Moti Mahal, or whether it is Changamal, or whether it is the shops in Jahangirabad Mansion. Each one of them, they are putting up their billboard, they are putting up signs, they are modifying the structures, and they are doing whatever they can. So even though they are earning money, even though the commercial angle is there, even though they are aware, they are not students, or they are not low-grade people who are not aware of architecture, or not aware of heritage, but they are deliberately defacing the buildings of Hazratganj, and once again we see the horrible condition of Hazratganj within a period of 10 years. So personally, I feel that whatever we say or whatever we feel, somehow inside us we lack that empathy for heritage, and we are very careless people. And if many of you must have gone abroad, you see how the heritage structures and medieval structures, they stand side by side with skyscrapers and modern structures. Nobody disturbs anything, and there's a great harmony among these. But here in our country, we tend to ignore, and we tend to destroy and deface, and we are just bothered about earning money, or bothered about our own selfish ends. I'm sorry to use such harsh words, but it's happening. Whenever I come to Lucknow and I see that Hazratganj is going down, down, down once again. 10 years ago, I was very proud that, oh, such a beautiful place, and wow, nice place to sit, and fountains and benches, and these colonial era type lampposts and everything. Everything is gone and everything is falling apart, and just people don't care. And some stealing is also there. But people are carrying away the garbage bins, they are carrying away the pillars and whatnot. So what does this show? That unless we ourselves, from our hearts, we feel a certain empathy, we feel a certain attachment towards all this, then what can government do, and what can an NGO do, and what can CFL do? I mean, there has to be, something has to come from inside us. Otherwise, we can have a number of meetings like this, and nothing really. Either the government puts in such strong controls that, okay, you deface something, you will be put in jail, like Singapore. You disturb a single inch of anything, and you will be arrested and beaten up. That's one aspect, but there's a democracy can't be done. So the second thing is that it has to come from within us. And the sad truth is, it is not coming from within us.
I would now like to call upon Ms. Sangeeta Jaiswal, founder member, Lucknow Expressions Society, to come up on the stage and give a vote of thanks.
So I hope you all have enjoyed this evening as much as I have. On behalf of Lucknow Expressions Society, it's a huge privilege to thank the distinguished panelists here, and a special, and I think this has been a very engaging session, very relevant and engaging, and a special round of applause for Mr. Shehercha Mirza for coming all the way from Calcutta. Very grateful for constant media support to Kaifi Azmi Academy, and lastly, and most importantly, to all the guests who are here, who make all our programs so worthwhile. A huge round of applause for everybody who's here.